Okay, so now Othello gets dragged into. Well, he's not. There's going to be war with the Turks in Cyprus, and Othello's being called by the kind of emissary, the people who run Venice, because he's this great general. And Brabantio's kind of confused because he wasn't invited, and he feels kind of let down. But he says, "Okay, great, they're all meeting. I'm going to accuse Othello in front of them of witchcraft." And Othello, G. Wilson Knight, I think AO5 Knight refers to this Othello music, his language, his beautiful. He's probably one of Shakespeare's most beautiful speakers. It's funny because later in the play he says, "I'm not very good at talking," and it's completely untrue. His language does definitely deteriorate over the course of the play, but he's accused here of witchcraft. And that's the only way Desdemona could fall in love with something so black, and something Brabantio says that she would fear to even look on. And Othello has an opportunity in this remarkable speech to explain how he made her, how he courted her. And it's worth looking at really closely. Her father loved me, often invited me, still questioned me, the story of my life. This is what this is really about. So Brabantio wanted this general in his home. From year to year, the battles, sieges, fortunes that I passed, I ran it through, even from my boyish days to the very moment that he bade me tell it. So from his kind of boyhood to this time, wherein I spake of most disastrous chances, of moving accidents by flood and field, of hair-breadth escapes in the imminent deadly breach. Just this very slim escape, save, of being taken by the insolent foe and sold to slavery. So there's a lot of speculation on these. Insolent foe. So he was a slave, and he became redeemed. So there's a lot of debate. Some people, was he a pagan? Now Jerry Broughton and other modern critics, I think Anita Lumba, look at, so I'll just put these names here: Knight, Lumba, Jerry Broughton. You should look these people up if you're interested in these ideas. So Broughton is into the idea of his Islamic, Moorish, the Moor. So maybe he was Islamic, sold to slavery, and then redeemed. Becomes Christian. He becomes Christian, which becomes a big thing in the play. Like, so for critical debates, certainly F.R. Leavy's, T.S. Eliot, this idea of Othello kind of being diluted and storytelling, and some critics think of him as kind of reverting to an African nature or pagan nature or Islamic nature, moving away from this Christian nature that he has here into something else. These very small little stories reveal a great deal. They can be thought of a lot and can really make you think about kind of the culture that we're talking about. We're going to see more of that culture, the culture of travel and exploration. And portents in my travels history, whereof antras vast and deserts idle, rough quarries, rocks, and hills, whose heads touch heaven. It was my hint to speak, such was the process. That's an interesting line. And of the cannibals that, okay, so here we get all this travel, this has been talked about a lot. This whole story is about travel literature right now. People are leaving England and exploring the whole world, and they're coming back with these fantastical stories of cannibals, men who eat men, and the anthropophagi, men whose heads grow beneath their shoulders. What an odd image. And you know, this kind of magical, what someone like Edward Said might call Orientalists, these fantastical stories, they get the attention of Desdemona. And this is what a great image. She'd seriously incline. Maybe she'd tip her head, that's what I see, but seriously, like actively listening. But still the house affairs would draw her hence. So she's a little young girl and she has to take care of the house. Whichever as she could with haste dispatch, she'd finish her chores and come back again. And here, this is a haunting thing for him later. With a greedy ear, hungry, wants. Being greedy will then, later in the play, maybe start to imply something more sexual. This will haunt him. And eat up, devour up my stories, which I observing, so I noticed her doing that, took one supply an hour and found good means to draw from her a prayer of earnest heart, that I would all my pilgrimage dilate, where by parcels she had something heard. So I found time to speak to her, and I told her everything. It's really beautiful, actually. Dilate. She'd only heard parcels, parts. Now she gets the whole. But not inattentively. I did consent, and often did beguile her of her tears. When I did speak of, so she's just crying, you know. She made these stories, made her cry. When I did speak of some distressful stroke that my youth suffered, she's so, she feels for him. She feels for him. She feels his pain. My story being done, she gave me for my pains a world of sighs. She swore in faith 'twas strange, 'twas passing strange, 'twas pitiful, 'twas wondrous pitiful. These small repetitions he noticed, and he makes good use of here. He's really persuading, he's pulling his audience into this narrative. She wished she had not heard it, yet she wished that heaven made her such a man. She thanked me and bade me, if I had a friend that loved her, I should but teach him how to tell my story, and it would woo her. So this is a very indirect way of saying, I fancy you, right? Teach your friend how to tell this story to me, and they got me. On this hint I spake. So he notices her. They have this beautiful indirect way of communication. Later, you know, this is what's so tragic and brutal about this play. They're in love. They truly are, and they have this way of communicating almost through this, and it all deteriorates. It's quite, this for me is the tragedy for sure. She loved me for the dangers I passed, and I loved her that she did pity them. I mean, I've had students, we can have a lot of debate here about what is this love? What is this love? What is it based on? Is it something beautiful? Is it something manipulative? Is it something, I don't know. He uses some irony. He says, this is the only witchcraft I've used. And, oh, here she comes, let her say. And it's very funny. In the full text, you know, the leaders of Venice, oh, you know, this story would win my daughter too. They're so dreamy-eyed for this beautiful man with his beautiful stories. And, in fact, this speech in some ways reenacts the wooing that he did for Desdemona. And it woos the audience, us the audience, them the audience on stage. It doesn't woo Brabantio. He's heard all this before, and now he just doesn't believe it. Well, she comes, and she gives her version of events. My noble father, I do perceive here a divided duty. To you I am bound. This is very Cordelia from Lear. Same problem. This you could think about maybe even Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. That's an Italian play, but also this divided duty, owing your parents. To you I am bound for life and education. My life and education both to learn me how to respect you. AO3, role of women, role of daughters. What is she got to do? You are the lord of duty. I'm hitherto your daughter. Okay, this is the exact problem in Lear. But now I have a husband, and so much duty as my mother showed to you, preferring you before her father, so much challenge that I may profess due to the more, my lord. So look, father versus husband. So she's like, I'm choosing. I did love the more to live with him. My downright violence and storm of fortunes may trumpet to the world. My heart subdued, because Othello, is being sent to Cyprus, and she refuses to be separated from him. And she begs to go. She doesn't want to be in her dad's eye. My heart subdued even to the very quality of my lord. I saw his face in his mind. This, again, building on what I was saying earlier. She saw into his mind, maybe his soul. This truth, I see him, and to his honor and his valiant parts did I my souls and fortunes consecrate. I am given myself to him completely. So that, dear lords, if I be left behind, what a wicked line, a moth of peace, and he go to war, the rights for which I love him are bereft me. I will be lost, that I've given everything for this, and I a heavy interim shall support by his dear absence. Please let me, be a sheep, let me go with him. And she's allowed to go with him. And then Brabantio's lost everything, and he's lost status, he's lost his daughter, and he says something quite haunting on the way out. Look to her more, if thou hast eyes to see. Looking eyes. There's a literal meaning here, and surely there's a metaphorical reading here. And again, these are the kind of lines that kind of haunt Othello, because Desdemona looks the same throughout. She's beautiful, innocent, but how he sees her completely is distorted, and how he understands her is completely infected by Iago. And a lot of these lines come to really haunt him later on. And what Shakespeare's doing in the play is creating these patterns of light and dark, storytelling, illusion, lies, truth, sight. Othello has very bad eyesight. So when he's first seen, he asks Iago, what is that? And, Shakespeare's very attuned, kind of a cluster, a constellation of ideas, words, images, which give you in-depth insight into the character. Othello is not very good at looking. His eyes. He can see somewhat deeper, maybe with Desdemona, but his sight is open to manipulation.